Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here this morning on Monday the 26th. Thank you for tuning in. The bottom 60% of the people out there, they're being left in the dust. It says there's a handful of winners, and they're declaring that the system's working great. They're high-fiving one another. Widening gap between the top 10% and the bottom 60% of the population. Let's take a look at some of these charts. Let's see if I can get this chart up here. Consumer good prices. Now, you notice about this list, the items that have gone down in price are things like software, toys, modular phones and phone services, televisions. They've all actually dropped in price. I remember when I was a younger guy, a television was a big purchase for a household. Remember, we went a number of years without TV. I think it was in the 1970s. And finally, my father, he decided he wanted a television, and I was all for it too. As a kid, I wanted to watch Saturday morning cartoons. So I think there was a store in Florida there called Golden Triangle. My dad went in and he bought an expensive television. It was a Hitachi television. Best television we ever bought, though. Made in Japan. Japan makes the best well, there was a period, they still do. They still make terrific products. The Japanese are extremely good craftsmanship, excel in craftsmanship. So this television lasted, it lasted. It was a 19-inch color television. And back then, I think he paid like $350 or $400 for it. Now, you got to understand what dollars was worth in 1970. How much money $400 was. You could buy that same TV now with these worthless dollars for probably just the same price of less, maybe a bigger screen. So televisions went down, but you can't eat a television. And you notice that a lot of these goods here are like hospital services. They're things you have to have. You're sick with appendicitis. If you don't get hospital care, you're going to die. They got you over a barrel. And look what hospital services have went up. 99.8% up since 2008. College tuition up 64%. Child care is up 62%. Medical care is up 57%. Food and drink 52% up. I think this chart is actually conservative. Take a look. Let me see if there's any other charts that are interesting here. But at any rate, what it's showing here, real estate value chart. Anyway, what it's showing here is the bottom part of the society are the ones that's being crushed right now. The bottom 60%. But that's the majority. You get the 50-50 rule, you got 50% of the population and you got another 50% of the population. You get more than 50% of the population, you've got the majority. 51% is the majority of the population. Well, 60% is well over the majority of the population, and they are really, really suffering. And when people are happy, they don't riot. They don't protest. You can't get them to. But when people get unhappy, you can't stop them. You can't force them to protest when they're happy, and you can't stop them from protesting when they're unhappy. Now, going over to Britain, a British citizen was found dead. A Russian missile strike. The Russians are making the biggest strike, one of the biggest strikes since the beginning of the war right now. Is it payback for Kursk? I don't know. But they're making one heck of a big strike here. And a British citizen, he's been found dead. I guess he was right at the center of where this bomb came in. Right in here, the center of the blast. Bad spot, wrong time. He's in the wrong place, the wrong time. Now, Moscow is under attack right now. Air defenses are shooting down killer drones over the Russian capital. It says Ukraine carried out a massive overnight assault on the country. I think this is a little bit old, a couple days ago, but this is what's going on. The Ukraine has moved into that territory in Russia. They're right inside Russia. If they want to use that, what's preventing? Now, I'm just going to ask a question. What would prevent the Ukrainians from using that position inside Russia as a staging ground? For what? Well, moves them a lot closer. They're right inside Russia itself. That's where they're at. You know? They're inside Russia right. I still can't believe it. They've actually invaded Russia. And they're not moving out. In fact, it's growing bigger. They had like 1,000 square kilometers just a few days ago. What is it? Something like day 15 right now or something like that? It's like been a couple weeks. They're not moving out, and now it's up to 1,200 and something square kilometers that they've taken. They're expanding their operation inside Russia itself. Amazing times we live in. It's almost unbelievable. Now I got looking at this article, and I got thinking about this. It says a German leader vows tougher knife laws. How do you do that? Every house, no matter what country you're in, I don't care. They got you open up a drawer in the kitchen, it's full of knives. That's because we need them. We can't make dinner without them. We can't cut the carrots. We can't peel the potatoes. So how does this whole thing work with tougher knife laws? Are they going to make it so that you need a license to buy a kitchen knife or whatever? I just don't get it. How does it work? I'm asking that question. How does that work? I understand how gun laws work, but I don't understand how knife laws work. Because they're everywhere in everybody's house. I got questions about that. Now, Martin Armstrong, he's saying, and I'm going to tell you, Martin Armstrong's very smart. He is so smart that they have used him in the past. They've asked for his advice. The actual governments come and ask him for advice. You know, and he is saying right here that, where did it say? He says, we are looking at serious civil unrest regardless of who wins the election in November. Neither side, he's talking about the Democrats and Republicans, is going to accept it. In other words, the election, according to him. So he's very worried about this. He doesn't think either side's going to accept the results of the election. He says neither side is going to accept it. And he's talking about serious civil unrest. Well, we're going to have to wait and see if all that comes to fruition, but we're not going to have to wait very long. I mean, this is rapidly approaching. We're going to have to wait and see what happens. I am kind of thinking that maybe he's right. In my opinion, I'm thinking, now this is my personal opinion, I'm just thinking, hey, you know what? I'm thinking he's probably right. Now, silver today is up 14 cents at $29.92. In the short term, I can see it just kind of treading water in around $30 in the short term. Very short term. I'm talking about like maybe, I don't know, let's just say perhaps leading up close to the election. From now until leading up close to the election, I tend to think that it's going to kind of tread water a little bit. From these prices that we have now. Now, as far as cryptocurrencies is concerned, Bitcoin is at 63,752. Ethereum is at 27.29, and XRP is at 59.1 cents. So that's how the cryptocurrencies are doing right now. Stocks and bonds, we're looking at the S&P 500 dropping 8 points at 5,625. The Dow, I'll tell you what's going through my mind on this. I'm thinking 6,000 for the S&P 500. Not too distant future. I'm thinking Dow Jones maybe passing the 45,000 mark. You know? And crude oil, well, that is very dependent on what happens in that war in the Middle East right now. I've heard some people saying that Iran right now is developing a nuclear weapon. I've heard that. I do know that they're holding back on attacking Israel. They've held back on that big attack they were planning on Israel. That their leader said, "Hey, you know that this is coming. They're going to attack," and they didn't come. Why? Are they doing something? Gosh only knows. Now, crude oil is up $2 today at $77.91. But you guys know how high crude could go if they get embroiled into a war in the Middle East? Even if they don't cut off the oil, if they don't put a stranglehold on it on its routes there through the Persian Gulf, even if they let it flow freely through there, which would be probably not. I mean, if they start blowing up oil refineries and stuff, you know, I could see the oil price going up measurably higher, even if things go calmly toward the oil through that region. But probably not. I mean, if they get into a big war in that region, it's probably going to cut off the oil supply in one way or another. And you're looking at a very, very sensitive, oil price is extremely sensitive to constraints in supply. Even a very slight constraint in supply can have a tremendous effect upon the oil price. So because the world uses an exact certain set amount of oil each and every day that they use. So if you're overproducing, you get a surplus, the price drops like a stone on oil. And if you underproduce, the price rises very, very significantly and quickly in oil, because it's very sensitive to the amount produced every day to supply world demand. Taking a look now at the bonds and rates. We're looking at climbing yields today, but it's not no big time. It's small. It's less than a basis point. So 0.3 basis point on the 10-year up. And it's at 3.81. And the U.S. 30-year is up 0.2 basis point at 4.1. And we still have that massive inversion between the short end and the long end. Inversion's showing up the biggest probably between the 7-year and the 1 month. With a 7 years, take a loan for 7 years, you get it at 3.71%, And if you take a loan for 1 month, you're going to pay 5.33. That's a big difference between, it's not the way money's supposed to work. The way money's supposed to work is as you move out into the longer, hold money for a longer period of time, you should get paid a higher rate of return. And for a short period of time, it should be a smaller rate of return. And so when that happens, it's what they call a yield curve inversion, because it's not working the way. It shows a serious fault. That shows a serious fault in the financial system itself, that there's something big time wrong. Now, we've seen the dollar drop off. We were looking at a 104 there not too long ago, just a matter of a few weeks ago. Now we're looking at 100. Now that's a significant drop of about 4% in the US dollar index. Starting to get kind of significant. But they, in the markets nowadays, they always front run everything, And so they're seeing the change in the monetary policy of the Fed. They're seeing that, and it's only going to get worse now that the Fed's starting to become dovish again, because the real economy out there, let's face it, guys, the real economy out there is suffering badly. There's going to be a lot of job losses very soon here, and then those people that get spin-off from that, so they lose their job, they can't spend money. So now the pizza joint on the corner goes broke, and they have to fire their employees because they're not getting enough business anymore because of all the people on that street that lost their jobs. And so their employees that get fired now have lost their jobs, and that spins off to another business someplace that can't maintain business because of all those other people that lost their jobs. So then they fire their people or lay their people off. So now you got even more unemployed. And the first thing you know, you're in a depression. And it can happen so quick when people, because as people see all of these other people losing their jobs and stuff, they decide not to make these discretionary purchases or these impulse buying and everything. It just comes to a stop. The consumer starts to restrain their activity and pull their activity in. And that creates more job losses. The whole thing is a self-feeding, self-perpetuating cycle of job losses. And you head right into a depression. Then prices can start to drop. The economy can start, first it starts with disinflation. And that's a warning sign to deflation. And deflation can happen so fast. Deflation is the fastest. Inflation is one of those things you can see it coming from a mile away. It's like the grand parade with all the bells and whistles. That's the inflation. You can see it coming from a mile away. But deflation, it sneaks up on you and it pounces like a crook pouncing out of an alleyway. He just, suddenly he's there. That's deflation. It just comes suddenly. Somebody goes bankrupt, a few banks go bankrupt or whatever, and then the first thing you know, boom, it's in the economy, and it can strike very, very quickly. It's the speed of it. It's a hidden thing. It comes out of nowhere. Deflation, and it can attack and spiral out of control very suddenly. And they still haven't lowered interest rates. I mean, there's been a lot of talk and everything, but they haven't done things yet. They haven't taken action. It's still tight monetary policy right now. And you got to understand that all these things have a delayed effect. And so we're about ready to see some turmoil. In the next, I'm going to say probably within the next 4 months, I'm expecting some kind of, I don't know how it's going to play out, and I just have the feeling that it's coming in the next 3 or 4 months, some turmoil, some financial turmoil. For the first time, probably since I've been doing my show, I named my show Financial Turmoil Explained, And we haven't really seen any real financial turmoil, because I started my channel after the great financial turmoil of the year 2008. And we haven't had any significant financial turmoil since. They've just pumped the system full of money and everything, and now they've tried to drain the money pool a little bit and stuff, but they haven't had any significant financial turmoil. I'm expecting it in the next 4 months. And how it's going to play out, I don't know. But I'm expecting of it. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Really appreciate my audience out there. Appreciate my members of my channel. I got a show I'm planning for tomorrow for my members, a members only show. And we'll catch you guys in the next show, and you guys have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.